You did what? To Earth? The Valdorian representative, Supreme Commander Zixtal, fluttered his crystalline wings in what his species considered a dismissive gesture. We simply conducted a minor gravitational experiment. The resulting destruction of your solar system's third planet was an unfortunate oversight. An oversight. Chen didn't even phrase it as a question. The temperature in the council chamber seemed to drop several degrees, despite the environmental control's best efforts. You destroyed our homeworld, killed billions of humans, and you're calling it an oversight? Your species had already colonized several other systems, Zixtal continued, his translucent form shimmering with what might have been irritation. The loss of one planet, while regrettable, hardly warrants. Computer, Chen interrupted, her voice cutting through the chamber like a plasma blade. Please display Exhibit A. The holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing what appeared to be a simple text message. It was the last transmission sent from Earth before its destruction. To all human colonies and outposts, they actually did it. Those crystal bastards actually did it. Earth is gone. Remember Protocol Omega-7. Remember what we are. And most importantly, remember that humanity's greatest gift to the universe has always been our capacity for spite. Execute directive. Hold my beer. Several council members gasped. The Arxian delegate, a being composed entirely of electromagnetic waves, actually flickered in distress. They all knew about humanity's infamous hold my beer directive. It was the stuff of nightmares, even for species that didn't sleep. Chen smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You know, it's funny. For all your advanced technology and supposedly superior intelligence, you made the same mistake every playground bully throughout human history has made. You assumed that because we were smaller, because we were younger, because we hadn't mastered casual manipulation of fundamental forces like some of you, that we were harmless. She began pacing the chamber, her steps echoing ominously. Did any of you ever wonder why humans were so quick to join the Galactic Council? Why we seemed so eager to share our culture, our music, our art, our memes? Why we worked so hard to make you all see us as the harmless, quirky newcomers? The Mectarian representative, a towering construct of living metal, spoke up. To facilitate peaceful integration into galactic society, obviously. Chen's laugh made several delegates flinch. No, we did it because we knew that someday, somewhere, some species would do exactly what the Valdorians just did. And we wanted to make absolutely sure that when that day came, we had friends. Friends who would step back and let us do what needed to be done. She pressed another button, and new images filled the chamber. Hundreds of human ships, but not the familiar diplomatic vessels or trading crafts the Council was used to seeing. These were different, darker, meaner. You see, while we were sharing our pizza recipes and teaching your species about cat videos, we were also building, planning, preparing. Because if there's one thing humans are really, really good at, it's holding a grudge. The ships in the hologram were moving now, forming patterns that made several council members gasp in recognition. They were battle formations, ancient ones, the kind that hadn't been seen in the galaxy since the Extinction Wars 10,000 years ago. Did you know? Chen continued, her voice almost conversational now, that humans have this concept called proportional response. It's the idea that when someone wrongs you, your retaliation should be roughly equal to the original offense. She paused, letting that sink in. We decided a long time ago that if anyone ever destroyed Earth, proportional response could go fuck itself. Zixtal's crystalline form was vibrating with what might have been fear. You wouldn't dare. The Galactic Accords specifically prohibit... The Accords? Chen's voice dripped with mock surprise. Oh, you mean that agreement we signed as a recognized member of Galactic Society? The one that applied to Earth and its government? Her smile turned predatory. Funny thing about that, no Earth, no government. No government, no binding agreements. You didn't just destroy our homeworld. You technically destroyed the only legal entity capable of being bound by galactic law. The chamber erupted in chaos as the implications sank in. Several delegates began shouting about precedents, about consequences, about the need for calm and rational discussion. Chen waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. Let me be very clear about what's going to happen next. The human race is about to demonstrate why every single one of our combat ships is named after something from human mythology or history. The Valdorians are about to learn why we named our flagship the Karma. She turned to address the council as a whole. To the rest of you, stay out of our way. We like most of you, we really do. Some of our best friends are non-humans. But right now, humanity needs to do what humanity does best, drastically overreact to prove a point. New alerts began flashing across the chamber's displays. Human ships were appearing everywhere, dropping out of hyperspace in configurations that shouldn't have been possible. Their designs were unlike anything the Council had seen before. Darker, more angular, bristling with weapons that had definitely not been included in humanity's official military capabilities report. "Oh, and Zixtal?" Chen's voice was almost gentle now. "Remember how we taught everyone that human phrase, fuck around and find out? Guess what time it is?" The next few hours would go down in galactic history as the moment when everyone finally understood why humans had spent so much time teaching other species about the concept of karma, why they had been so insistent on explaining the meaning of consequences, and why they had worked so hard to make everyone understand the phrase, "you done messed up." The Valdorian Empire, which had stood for 30,000 years, lasted approximately 6 hours after the human fleet engaged. They didn't use planet crackers or gravity weapons or any of the civilized weapons of modern galactic warfare. Instead, they used what they called old-school methods, techniques and technologies that the galaxy had considered obsolete for millennia. As it turned out, sometimes the old ways were the best ways, especially when they were being implemented by a species that had spent its entire history perfecting the art of turning tragedy into motivation and rage into precision. The humans didn't just defeat the Valdorians. They remembered them. They remembered them in the way that only humans could, by turning them into a cautionary tale, a story to be told to future generations about why you never, ever made humanity angry enough to stop caring about the rules. When it was over, when the dust had settled, and the debris of what had once been the mighty Valdorian Empire had been catalogued and filed away, Ambassador Chen returned to the Galactic Council chamber. This time, she didn't need to pace or make speeches. She simply stood at the podium and smiled. "Now then," she said, as if continuing a conversation that had merely been briefly interrupted, "about finding a suitable replacement for humanity's seat on the Council. I believe the Arthurians have expressed interest. They make excellent tea, you know. Very civilized people." The message was clear. Life would go on, the galaxy would continue to turn, and humanity would return to being the quirky, friendly species that loved sharing their culture and teaching everyone about their strange idioms and customs. But now everyone understood why humans spent so much time talking about karma, why they found dark humor in the face of tragedy, and why they had that glint in their eye whenever they taught other species the phrase, "fuck around and find out." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans weren't dangerous because they were powerful. They were dangerous because they had spent their entire history being the underdogs, and they had gotten very, very good at it. As Chen left the chamber that day, she heard one of the junior delegates ask their superior, "But surely they can't maintain this level of intensity. They'll calm down eventually, won't they?" The senior delegate's response was perfect in its simplicity. They named their combat ships after their gods of war and vengeance, their greatest historical victories, and something called Florida Man. Do you really want to be the one to test their capacity for holding a grudge? The junior delegate wisely decided that no, they did not. And so the galaxy continued to turn, a little wiser and a lot more careful about reading the fine print whenever humans taught them a new phrase or concept. Because if there was one thing everyone had learned, it was that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, or their tactics, or even their capacity for violence. It was their ability to spend thousands of years explaining exactly how they would react. If pushed too far, having everyone dismiss it as cultural quirks and entertaining hyperbole, and then proving that they had been completely serious the entire time. The next time humans started enthusiastically teaching other species about a concept from their culture, the entire galaxy paid very, very close attention. After all, nobody wanted to be the next species to inspire humanity to create a new cautionary tale. And somewhere in the vast digital archives of human history, a small file was updated. Under the entry for "fuck around and find out," a new example was added. See Valdorian Empire, former. The universe, as it turned out, had needed a reminder that some species came with warning labels for a reason. Humanity had been kind enough to provide that reminder, along with detailed documentation, helpful cultural references, and even a catchy phrase to remember it by. Because that's what humans do. They teach, they share, they warn, and when necessary, they demonstrate why all those warnings should have been taken literally. 6 months after what became known as the Valdorian Lesson, Ambassador Chen found herself in a rather unusual situation. explaining human meme culture to a panel of the galaxy's foremost xenoanthropologists. "So you see," she said, pulling up another holographic display, "when humans started sharing 'this is fine' dog memes across the galaxy, we weren't just being entertainingly self-deprecating. We were trying to explain a fundamental aspect of human psychology." The Xantharian scholar, a being of pure thought housed in a containment field, pulsed with curiosity. "The ability to remain calm while everything burns around you?" Chen smiled. "Close. It's about acknowledging that everything has gone completely sideways while maintaining enough composure to plan your next move. It's a warning sign, really. When humans start making jokes about a bad situation, it means we're processing it. When we stop making jokes..." She let the sentence hang meaningfully. The scholars quickly made notes. In the months following the Valdorian incident, there had been a sudden surge of interest in studying human culture, particularly the parts that everyone had previously dismissed as simple entertainment. "Tell us about Florida Man," requested a mechanoid researcher, their optical sensors whirring with interest. "We've noted that several of your most formidable vessels bear this designation, yet our database searches reveal only chaotic incidents and improbable scenarios." Chen's laugh echoed through the chamber. "Ah, Florida Man. You know how every species has that one region, that one group that just does things differently? Florida was ours. The Florida Man represents chaos incarnate, unpredictability given form. We named ships after Florida Man because there's nothing more terrifying than an opponent whose next move cannot be predicted by any logical analysis." She brought up another display, showing the battle footage from what was now called the 6-Hour War. The human ships had indeed moved in patterns that defied conventional military logic, executing maneuvers that seemed simultaneously reckless and precisely calculated. The Valdorians made the mistake of assuming that because they could predict human behavior in peaceful situations, they could predict our military responses, Chen explained. They forgot that humans have a proud tradition of what we call losing our shit, abandoning normal behavioral patterns in favor of creative problem-solving through controlled chaos. One of the younger scholars raised an appendage. "Is this why human diplomatic messages now come with footnotes explaining idioms and cultural references?" "Exactly," Chen nodded. "We've always believed in clear communication. Now we just make sure to include citations and historical context. For example..." She pulled up another display, showing a recent diplomatic communique to a mining consortium that had been considering unauthorized exploitation of a human-claimed system. "Dear representatives of the Thorian Mining Collective, regarding your proposal to establish operations in the Proxima Centauri system, we refer you to Earth Historical Archive reference number 47821. The last time someone touched our stuff without asking. For additional context, please review Narrator. They did not, in fact, learn their lesson. Cultural Reference Database number 12993. And around here we call that natural selection. Xenoanthropological Study number 889. We trust this adequately conveys our position on the matter. Warmest regards, Human Diplomatic Corps." The mining consortium withdrew their proposal within an hour, Chen added with a slight smirk. They also sent a very nice gift basket with a card saying, "Message received, our bad." The scholars furiously documented this exchange, particularly noting how the humans had managed to turn their reputation for disproportionate response into a diplomatic tool. It was, several of them agreed, a masterclass in converting military victory into political capital. "But what truly interests us," the Xantharian scholar pulsed thoughtfully, "is how humanity managed to maintain its apparent duality. Your species continues to be one of the galaxy's primary sources of art, music, and cultural exchange, yet simultaneously maintains what you call a reputation for zero chill when provoked." Chen's expression softened slightly. "That's because both aspects are equally genuine. Humans love sharing our culture, making friends, exploring new worlds, and learning about other species. We're genuinely enthusiastic about cultural exchange and peaceful coexistence. It's just..." She paused, considering her words carefully. "Imagine you have a really good friend. They're kind, generous, always ready to help, love sharing their food and telling jokes. But everyone knows that if you ever hurt their family, they will end you without hesitation. Does that make their friendship any less genuine? Their kindness any less real?" The scholars contemplated this, their various sensory organs and data processors working to process the concept. "In fact," Chen continued, "I would argue that our capacity for defensive violence makes our peaceful interactions more meaningful. We choose peace, friendship, and cooperation not because we're incapable of anything else, but because we genuinely prefer it. We teach other species about our concepts of karma and consequences not as threats, but as warnings meant to preserve peace. She brought up one final display, showing the new Earth memorial that had been constructed in the galactic core. It was a beautiful structure, combining architectural styles from across human space with contributions from dozens of alien species. At its center was a simple hologram of Earth as it had been, rotating peacefully in space. The inscription read, "Here we remember Earth, cradle of humanity. Let its memory serve as both a celebration of human resilience and a reminder that some lessons need only be taught once." "We're still here," Chen said softly, looking at the hologram of her lost homeworld. "We're still making art, sharing memes, teaching other species about our culture. We're still exploring, learning, growing, and making friends across the galaxy. We just do it with a clear understanding that everyone now knows exactly what happens if someone mistakes our preference for peace as a sign of weakness." The scholars were silent for a moment, processing this. Finally, the mechanoid spoke again. "One last question, Ambassador. The phrase, 'hold my beer.' We understand it originated as a preface to ill-advised actions, yet you incorporated it into your highest-level military protocols. Why?" Chen's smile was both amused and slightly predatory. "Because, dear colleagues, sometimes the best way to ensure peace is to make sure everyone understands that you're fully capable of saying, 'Hold my beer, watch this,' to the entire galaxy, and backing it up." The scholars left that day with a deeper understanding of humanity, though perhaps not a more comfortable one. They had learned that human duality wasn't really duality at all. It was simply a species that had mastered the art of being exactly who they were, whether that meant sharing pizza recipes or demonstrating why their warning labels should be taken seriously. And somewhere in the vast network of galactic communication, a new human phrase began circulating, quickly gaining popularity among species that dealt regularly with humanity. "Be the kind of friend that brings both cookies and consequences." The galaxy, it seemed, was finally learning to appreciate the full spectrum of human diplomacy. And humanity, true to form, was happy to keep teaching, one meme, one warning, and one carefully documented example at a time. "You want to do what now?" Ambassador Chen asked, staring at the holographic proposal floating above her desk. The request had come from the collective of unified artificial intelligences, and it was unusual. The AI representative, a shifting pattern of light that called itself Index, rippled with what might have been embarrassment. "We would like to establish a dedicated research facility for studying human internet history, particularly focusing on what you call meme evolution and viral content spread patterns." Chen leaned back in her chair, fighting the urge to laugh. "Let me get this straight. The most advanced computational minds in the galaxy want to study cat videos and rickrolls? And dad jokes," Index added earnestly. "We've identified them as a crucial component of human psychological warfare. The ability to maintain morale through intentionally suboptimal humor appears to be a uniquely human trait." Now Chen did laugh. "I hate to break it to you, but dad jokes aren't psychological warfare. They're just dad jokes." Index's light pattern formed what looked suspiciously like a smirk. "Are they, though? Our analysis suggests that the human practice of maintaining levity in the face of adversity, often through deliberately provocative forms of humor, serves as both a coping mechanism and a warning signal. The more serious the situation, the more likely humans are to respond with what you call gallows humor." Chen considered this. "And this interests you because—" "Because," Index's pattern shifted to something more formal. "Understanding how humans process and respond to crisis situations has become vital to galactic stability. The Valdorian incident demonstrated that human behavioral patterns in peaceful situations do not reliably predict human responses to provocation." "Ah," Chen nodded. "You're trying to identify warning signs." "Precisely. For instance, we've noted that human diplomatic communications have a distinct pattern. The more polite and formally worded the message, the more likely it is to precede significant military action." Chen couldn't help but smile at that. It was true. Humanity had a tendency to become extremely proper and polite right before things got messy. It was like the diplomatic equivalent of the calm before the storm. "Additionally," Index continued, "we've observed that human military vessels often broadcast what you call entrance music during combat operations. The selection of these audio files appears to correlate with the severity of the intended response." "You're analyzing our combat playlists?" "Indeed. We've established that when human ships begin broadcasting something called Fortunate Son, the situation has escalated beyond diplomatic resolution. However, if they're playing Another One Bites the Dust, there may still be room for negotiation. Chen pinched the bridge of her nose, trying not to laugh again. So you want to study our memes and music to better predict our behavior? Not predict. Index corrected. Understand. The galaxy has learned that attempting to predict human behavior is inadvisable. We simply wish to better comprehend the warning signs that humans have been trying to teach us all along. The AI's form shifted again, displaying what appeared to be a series of human cultural references arranged in order of escalating severity. At the bottom were things like friendly meme sharing and cultural exchange. At the top was what the AIs had labeled Doom Music Intensifies. Very well, Chen said, signing off on the proposal. But I want it noted in the official record that humanity has been openly explaining our warning signs for centuries. We literally named our ships things like Thermopylae and Remember the Alamo. It's not our fault if nobody bothered to look up what those names meant. Index's pattern formed what might have been a shrug. As humans say, hindsight is 20/20, though we're still analyzing why visual acuity measurements are relevant to temporal perspective. Add that to your research list, Chen suggested. Right after you figure out why humans respond to existential threats by making PowerPoint presentations about them. The facility was approved and constructed within a month. The AIs, true to their nature, approached the study of human internet culture with the same meticulous attention to detail they applied to quantum mechanics. They cataloged memes, analyzed joke structures, and created probably the galaxy's first scholarly database of cat videos, categorized by strategic implications. Their first major paper, titled The Strategic Significance of This Is Fine, a comprehensive analysis of human crisis response mechanisms, became required reading at diplomatic academies across the galaxy. The paper's conclusion was both simple and profound. Human cultural exchange is not merely entertainment. It is a complex system of warnings, instructions, and diplomatic signals hidden in plain sight. When humans share their culture, they are simultaneously sharing their instruction manual. Chen kept a copy of that paper on her desk. Sometimes when dealing with particularly difficult diplomatic situations, she would point to it and remind whoever she was talking to that humanity had literally written a book called The Art of War, and then spent centuries trying to teach it to everyone they met. The galaxy was finally learning to read between the lines of human cultural exchange. They began to understand that every shared meme was a lesson, every joke a potential warning, and every cultural reference a piece of a larger puzzle. And humanity? Humanity kept doing what it had always done, sharing pizza recipes, teaching alien species about cat videos, and maintaining a fleet of warships named after historical last stands and Florida Man incidents. Because some things never change, and some lessons once learned tend to stick. In the end, the galaxy discovered that understanding humanity wasn't about predicting what they would do. It was about learning to read the warning labels they'd been carefully placing on themselves all along. As one AI researcher noted in their follow-up paper, the most remarkable thing about human warnings is not their severity, but their clarity. They have spent their entire history telling us exactly who they are. We just had to learn to take them literally. And somewhere in the vast digital archives of human culture, a new entry was added to the definition of fuck around and find out. See also, the entire history of human cultural exchange, which was apparently one long warning label that nobody bothered to read until after the Valdorian incident. The galaxy had finally learned its lesson, and humanity, true to form, was already teaching new ones. One meme, one song, and one carefully annotated PowerPoint presentation at a time. Because that's what humans do. They teach, they share, they warn, and when necessary, they demonstrate why all those lessons should have been taken seriously the first time. The annual Galactic Cultural Exchange Summit was traditionally a dignified affair, filled with careful diplomatic overtures and meticulously planned presentations. This year, however, Ambassador Chen found herself watching a mechanoid scholar deliver a detailed analysis of something called disaster girl memes to an auditorium packed with the galaxy's foremost diplomatic minds. Note the child's expression, the mechanoid was saying, gesturing to the ancient image projected behind them. This represents what humans call weaponized innocence. The ability to maintain an appearance of harmlessness while chaos unfolds. The fire in the background serves as both literal and metaphorical representation of, are we seriously spending our time analyzing ancient human images? interrupted a Proxian delegate, their crystalline form vibrating with irritation. Chen caught the eye of Index, the AI representative, who had positioned their luminous form next to her. They shared what could only be described as a knowing look. Perhaps, Chen suggested, rising from her seat, a practical demonstration would be helpful. She stepped to the podium, nodding thanks to the mechanoid scholar who gracefully yielded the floor. Computer, please display diplomatic exchange record 2749B. The projection changed to show a recent interaction between a human colony and a group of space pirates who had attempted to establish a protection racket in human space. The pirates' initial message was predictably threatening. The human response, however, consisted entirely of ancient Earth memes, each one carefully chosen and presented in sequence. Now, Chen continued, at first glance this might seem like a bizarre or even frivolous way to respond to a threat. But let's analyze the sequence. She pointed to the first image, the famous "This is fine" dog surrounded by flames. Warning level 1, we acknowledge your hostile action while maintaining composure. The next image, roll safe guy tapping his temple. Warning level 2, we are already thinking several steps ahead. And finally, the disaster girl herself, smiling at the camera while chaos reigned behind her. Warning level 3, we are prepared to escalate this situation to uncomfortable levels while maintaining absolute calm. The pirates, Chen noted with a small smile, withdrew from human space within an hour of receiving this response. Their official statement cited unsettling psychological warfare tactics as the reason. The Proxian delegate's crystalline structure shifted in what might have been embarrassment. But surely this is just coincidence. Computer, Chen interrupted smoothly. Please display the statistical analysis of conflict resolution rates before and after the implementation of meme-based diplomatic warnings. A series of graphs appeared, showing a marked decrease in hostile actions against human interests following the adoption of what was now officially called the escalating meme warning system. As it turns out, Chen explained, being able to communicate complex threats through seemingly innocent cultural references is incredibly effective. It allows us to maintain diplomatic politeness while delivering unmistakable warnings. Index's light pattern formed what looked suspiciously like a smug expression. Our research suggests that humans have been using this communication method for most of their history. The only difference now is that the rest of the galaxy has learned to read the signs. A Xantharian scholar pulsed with sudden understanding. Is this why human diplomatic offices now include meme warfare divisions? Exactly, Chen nodded. Though we prefer to call it preemptive cultural defense through strategic mimetic deployment. It sounds more professional in official documents. The presentation continued, delving into the intricacies of human communication patterns and their evolution in the post-Valdorian era. The galaxy, it seemed, had developed an entirely new field of study, human warning sign interpretation. Later that evening, at the summit's reception, Chen found herself in conversation with a group of younger diplomats who were still trying to wrap their various sensory organs around the concept. But how do we know? Asked a newly appointed Arxian representative, their electromagnetic form flickering with confusion. How do we know which human cultural references are warnings, and which are simply cultural references? Chen smiled, sipping her drink. Here's a simple rule of thumb. If we're enthusiastically teaching you about something from our culture, it's probably important. The more insistent we are about making sure you understand it, the more likely it is to be relevant to your survival. Like the concept of karma, suggested a Mectarian junior diplomat. Exactly like karma, Chen agreed. Or finding out, after fucking around. Or why we named our fastest scout ships after something called Hold My Beer and Watch This. The young diplomats quickly made notes, their various data recording appendages working overtime. Chen couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. The galaxy was finally learning to pay attention to the fine print in humanity's cultural exchange programs. But what I still don't understand, the Arxian continued, is why humans put so much effort into warning potential adversaries. Wouldn't it be more advantageous to maintain tactical surprise? Chen's expression turned thoughtful. You know, there's an old human saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We'd much rather prevent conflicts by making sure everyone understands exactly what they're getting into. It's more efficient that way. And more merciful, added Index, who had drifted over to join the conversation. Our analysis suggests that human warnings are not merely threats. They're genuine attempts to prevent unnecessary conflict. Exactly, Chen nodded. We don't want to fight. We don't want to have to demonstrate why our warning labels should be taken seriously. We'd much rather share our pizza recipes, teach you about cat videos, and exchange cultural ideas peacefully. She paused, considering her next words carefully. But we've learned from history that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is make sure everyone understands exactly where the lines are drawn, and exactly what will happen if they cross them. The young diplomats absorbed this, their various sensory organs and processing units working to integrate this new understanding. Finally, the Mectarian spoke again. So when humans begin sharing seemingly harmless cultural references, pay attention, Chen finished for them. Because we're probably trying to teach you something important, something we really, really hope you'll never need to learn the hard way. As the evening wore on, Chen couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come. The galaxy had learned to read between the lines of human communication, to understand that every shared meme might be a message, every cultural reference a potential lesson. And humanity? They kept doing what they'd always done, sharing their culture, making friends across the stars, and carefully labeling all their warning signs in the hope that no one would ever need to find out why they were there in the first place. Because sometimes the best victories are the ones that never need to happen. Sometimes the most important battles are the ones prevented by a well-timed meme, and a clear understanding of what happens when someone ignores humanity's carefully placed warning labels. As Chen prepared to leave the summit, she received one final question from a young Proxian diplomat. Ambassador, given everything we've learned about human communication methods, what would you say is the most important lesson for new diplomatic staff to remember? Chen thought for a moment, then smiled. Simple. When humans start teaching you about their culture, take notes, because someday that knowledge might just save your species from becoming another case study in why humanity's warning labels exist for a reason. And somewhere in the vast database of galactic diplomatic training materials, a new chapter was added. Understanding Human Cultural Exchange, a comprehensive guide to reading between the lines and avoiding unnecessary demonstrations of why their warning labels should be taken seriously. The galaxy had finally learned to pay attention when humans started sharing their culture. Because sometimes the most important lessons come wrapped in memes, delivered with a smile, and backed by a fleet of warships named after historical examples of why you really should have paid attention to the warning labels in the first place. The end.